Let my employees go. Let my team stay on the ship. Take me. That's courageous. Could you do that? Really? Could you do that? Could you sacrifice yourself for someone else? If so, you've got courage. Some ways to demonstrate courage are to place duty and commitment to the organization before yourself. It's to look and willingly accept responsibilities, even outside of what others are expecting you to do. So if you see something, take care of it. Don't wait for someone to ask you to take care of it. Just move forward with confidence. Stand up for what's right, not always what's possible. We have a saying in our office that choose the harder right over the easier wrong. That's how you demonstrate courage. Never blame others for your mistakes, and be willing to accept your mistakes and accept your decision and the consequences that come from that. Every decision has some consequence, and you've got to be willing to accept the consequences as well. When you see someone on your team making mistakes, talk to them privately. Don't just let it go. Showing courage means you're going to try and help someone else be better because you would want them to do that for you. If you're making a mistake, wouldn't you want someone to stop you? I was in a meeting a few weeks ago, and I said something, didn't pay any attention to how the rest of the group reacted to that. And a few hours later, I got a phone call from one of my peers. And they said, did you see how people reacted when you said whatever I said in the meeting? And I said, well, no, I didn't. And they said, well, you hit an emotional chord, and people were not happy. And their body language immediately showed that. And I think you need to fix this, because if you ignore it, it'll influence your credibility. How hard was that for a peer to call me and tell me that? That was really tough. I mean, he stewed about it for a couple of hours, but he had the courage to face and share with me the consequences of my decision. And I would challenge you to find the courage to do that as well. And ask for help from your team. Know your team and know who has strengths, and ask for their help when you need any help. Number 4 is decisiveness. When we go into organizations, the most common complaint that we get from employees, doesn't matter what the organization is, employees say, our communication is bad. Okay, well, we'll talk about communication later. The second thing they always tell us is, my boss cannot make a decision, or my boss won't make a decision and stick with it. So this is a big one. For your credibility as a leader, you have to learn how to be decisive. You have to learn how to weigh all the facts and assumptions and make a good decision. Winston Churchill led England through the World War II, and he showed decisiveness. England followed him because he made a decision, he went forward with it with confidence. So how do you develop decisiveness? Well, get into the habit of considering several points of view before you make a decision. Ask questions. Ask for other people's opinions. Recognize, am I making this decision on facts, or am I making this decision on assumptions? And try and minimize the assumptions that you're using. Remember that good decision is often better than no decision. In fact, not making a decision is a decision. It's usually not a very good one. So knowing when to make a decision is very important. Sometimes they have to be made quickly. Other times you should say, you know, I'm going to think about this and I'm going to sleep on it. I'll make that decision tomorrow. Or I need to do a bit more research and talk to some other people, and I'll make that decision next week. But know when to pull the trigger. Know when to make that decision. And if you've made the wrong decision, accept it, talk to your team, and tell them, let's fix it. Don't be afraid that your team will think less of you because you made a bad decision. We each make a decision based on the information we have at that moment. And sometimes we may find out new information in a week or a day or a month later that changes our decision. So don't be afraid to change your decisions. But don't just change them because of pressure from someone else. Change them because what you're doing isn't working. So once you make a decision, give it time to work. Give it time for people to get used to it. And then if it's not working, change it. Don't get stuck in a rut and go down the wrong path because your ego won't let you. 5 is dependability. Oh, here I talked about Winston Churchill, and I'm sorry, I must have been thinking about the wrong one. Dependability. Dependability is fulfilling your commitments. It's people knowing that they can count on you. It's following through on your words. If you say you're going to do something, you do it. And here again, this is where Winston Churchill led England. They depended on him. They really followed him and had confidence in him. So how do we demonstrate dependability every day? Well, it's being on time and being prepared. It's asking questions so that you understand. It's accomplishing your tasks in the time that you are asked to do it and at a quality, not just trying to skate by with the minimum. Dependability means you're not going to accept excuses. And you're not going to blame others when you do fail. And trust me, we all fail. Failure is part of our life. It's part of us as human beings. Build your reputation on keeping your word. That's probably the biggest thing we can do for dependability. Number 6 is initiative. And this is recognizing what must be done and doing it, not waiting for someone to tell you what needs to be done, but recognizing it and doing it yourself. You have a great person in history who demonstrates this quality. Mr. Singh, where would India be today if he hadn't taken initiative? If he had waited for someone to tell him or even agree with him this needed to happen, your country would be very different today than it is here. So he's a good example of initiative. How do we practice initiative? Again, we find tasks that need to be done, we see something, and we do it. This can be as simple as walking down the street, seeing something on the ground, a piece of litter, and picking it up. Now that sounds really silly, but it's that type of behavior that we're saying. You see something that's out of place, just deal with it. That's taking initiative. Look for better ways to do things. Look for more efficient ways, more effective ways, easier ways, simpler ways to do things. Consider strategic issues and look for ways to overcome future obstacles. What I mean by this is think ahead and prepare. So if something's coming up, think about all the what ifs. If I say this, what could be the reaction? If I say this, what could be the reaction? And be prepared. That's taking initiative. Tact. Tact is a difficult one because we don't talk about this in our lives very often. But tact is really about the ability to deal with others without causing ill will. It's about knowing when to keep your mouth closed and how to say things so that they're not offensive to others. Tact is a very important trait for a leader. Mary Kay Ash is an example of that. I don't know if you'll know who this is, but about 30 years ago, she developed a cosmetic company in the US. And she built her business really on the golden rule. She wanted to provide a way for women to be able to be at home with their children and raise their family and still build a business. And she really focused on building other people, and how she did that was a great use of tact. So how do we practice tact in our everyday life? Well, apply the golden rule. Treat others as you want to be treated. Be careful how you talk to other people. There is a difference between being direct and being blunt. Blunt means I'm going to say what I think and I don't care how you respond or how it affects you. Direct means I'm going to say what I need to say, but I'm going to say it in a way that you will hear me, that you will understand, that you will not become defensive. So I care about how you hear it. Because if we make someone defensive, they won't hear what we're saying at all. So think about how you're going to say it. Think about your audience. That's using tact. If you lack tolerance and patience, fix it. Work on it. Only you can make those personal traits stronger. And if you ignore them, they won't get stronger. So it has to be a purposeful choice to work on tolerance and patience. Step back, and when you're getting your emotions rising, when you start to feel your blood pumping and your heart rate's up and your shoulders are coming up and you're feeling really tense about something, that probably means you're having an emotional response to something, right? We all know that. Well, step back, literally if you can, take a step backwards, take a deep breath, and think about what you're going to say before you say it. Because if you don't, if you just open your mouth, things that come out may be hurtful. It certainly won't be tactful. And often you can't fix those words once they come out. They're said. You can't undo them. Always be respectful of the other person, so choose your words wisely, and sleep on an issue before you can do anything about it if possible. Number 8 is justice. Justice is being fair. It's putting personal feelings, emotions, prejudice aside so they don't influence your decision. It's considering all the consequences and deciding what is fair. President Abraham Lincoln was a person of justice. He led the United States through the Civil War and brought an end to slavery. So how do we practice justice in our everyday life? Well, we reward and we reprimand in the same fashion. We're consistent. We don't show favoritism. We don't reward our friends and give everyone else the cold shoulder, or the good assignments to our friends and the bad assignments to those people we don't like. Fair means we're treating everyone consistently. We're not letting our personal biases get in the way. So listen to all sides of an issue before you make a decision. As human beings, sometimes someone will come to you and they'll tell you a piece of gossip or a fact sometimes. And we'll go, oh, I've got to deal with that. Well, listen, ask for other opinions. Do a little bit of research yourself before you make a decision on what is truly fair. Otherwise, as humans, we tend to respond to whatever is in front of us. So important to be able to step back and be aware of your own prejudices. We all have them. If you don't know what they are, they're going to come out in inappropriate ways. A few months ago, I was at an airport. My husband and I were at an airport, and we'd had a very difficult time getting our tickets, our boarding passes. And so we'd been an hour and a half in line at the airport and couldn't get our boarding passes. And it was a computer glitch, and two airlines had combined. Anyway, I asked for the supervisor. And this young man, probably early 30s, well-dressed, fit, dark skin, dreadlocks, came walking over. And I said to my husband, we're never going to get through this. We're never going to get on that plane. We're running out of time, and this guy cannot help us. And my husband literally took a step back and looked at me and said, what are you prejudiced about? What about this guy that bothers you? And it caught me so off guard, I had to stop and think about it a minute. His hair. I had made a judgment about this guy based on his hair. Now, is there any validity to that? No. The guy actually fixed our issue in 3.5 minutes, walked us through security, and made sure we got on the plane because they were boarding the plane. But when we were going through security, they were already boarding the plane. Best customer service I've ever had in my life. And I made a negative judgment about the guy because of his hair. So learn your prejudice, because they may come out in inappropriate ways. Enthusiasm. Show sincere interest and eagerness for what you're wanting to do, for performing your job. I don't know if you know about Tom's Shoes, the founder of Tom's Shoes. he really wanted to be able to help the poor in the world. So he built these shoes. There's really not much to them. You buy a pair of Tom's shoes and he contributes money to help feeding the world, helping the world, building water supplies. You buy his shoes and you're contributing to helping the world. He is enthusiastic about what he's doing. He's passionate about it, what he's trying to do in the world. So to develop enthusiasm, consistently exhibit positive traits towards others. Have a positive attitude. Look for the good. Each of us as people either see the world with the glass half empty or the glass half full. Now, we see it both ways, but some of us will see it half empty first and have to be prompted to see it half full, and the others of us will see it half full and have to be prompted to see it half empty. Very important to be able to see it both ways, but I would say focus on seeing it half full. Find the positive. What good can come out of this? Look for the right in the situation. Emphasize other people's successes. Other people's successes doesn't minimize yours. So be excited for them, and then they'll be excited for you when you're successful. Encourage others to overcome obstacles. That's practicing enthusiasm. And teach other people how to do things. Don't do it for them. Teach them how to do things. And that will build your enthusiasm. 10 is bearing. This is about your general appearance. Do you know leaders who walk into the room and they just command your attention because of the way they walked into the room? Their posture, the way they carry themselves, that sense of they like who they are, they know who they are, they like who they are. That's what I mean by bearing. Mahatma Gandhi is a great example of that. He knew who he was, he knew his values, and he stuck to them. And you didn't even have to speak to the man. I've read books about him, and people were drawn to him just by how he walked through a park or into the room. So that's what we mean by bearing. How do we practice that? Well, control your voice. Control your voice sometimes means to be quiet too. Control your voice and gestures so that your emotions don't get in the way. Sometimes it's important to show anger, but how you show anger is important. I'm not saying don't show anger. How you show anger is important. It's never appropriate to show anger by demeaning someone else. You should show anger and stay focused on the facts of the situation, not towards another person. And not demeaning someone else in public. If you've got a beef with someone, if you've got an issue with someone, do it privately. Deal with it privately. Endurance. This one is where we want to talk about athletes for a moment. Endurance is maintaining the physical stamina to be able to do your job and be able to do it under long and difficult conditions. Now, I just read this morning in the newspaper, that you have a cricket player who just published a book, his autobiography. And he is a great example of endurance. Creating an athlete at that level takes a lot of work. Maintaining that level takes even more work. Hard work over long periods of time. So that's what we mean by endurance. How do we do that? Well, avoid excessive anything. Things that lower your physical, mental, spiritual stamina. Keep yourself sharp. Take care of yourself in order that when times get tough, you'll have the energy to be able to get through what you need to get through. Proper diet and exercise are important. Exercise is important from a stress level. Many people need to find a way to relieve stress so that it doesn't come out in inappropriate ways. So if that's exercise, if it's finding some type of spiritual release, if it is taking long walks, reading a book, whatever it is for you, find something that will help you relieve your stress because that will impact your endurance. And finish every